We haven't got any apologies for absence, have we? No. Right, okay, then welcome everybody to the Cabinet meeting today, and in this dark, lovely month of November, which I personally have always hated from since I was a little lad, because it's so dark and horrible. So before it gets fully dark, we'll get the meeting going. I'll move the item 1, which is apologies for absence. None received, thank you. And item 2 is to prove as correct record the minutes of the meeting held on 3rd of October 2024. That's on page 5. So I'll move those. Somebody second it. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Thank you very much. Moving on for item 3, which is declaration of interest. Any to declare? None declared. So moving on quickly to item 4, forward plan report. That's just for noting. So we agreed. We are agreed there. Thank you. And item 5, annual statistical complaints and ombudsman report. I think this is a good one. So over to you, Fran.
Thank you, Leader. As Cabinet are aware, the Council operates a 2-stage complaints process within the Council, and where complainants are not satisfied with the response to complaints at stage 1 and then stage 2, the complainant can refer the matter to the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman. Every year, the Ombudsman sends an annual letter to the Council detailing complaints dealt with by the Ombudsman for the year. This data is published for all local authorities and is presented to Cabinet as part of this report annually. In 2023-24, the Council received a total of 417 Stage 1 complaints across the organisation. This is a slight increase from the 404 complaints received in the previous year. Of those, 39% were upheld. The Council has also received 190 compliments across the organisation, which is a slight decrease from the previous year of 225. As you can see in the report, the complaints have been broken down into service area. And whilst there has been some reduction in complaints across waste, planning and leisure services, other areas have seen a more significant increase, most notably in parks and street care. In terms of identifying trends to these complaints and addressing those, that's done through quarterly reporting through senior leadership team and working with individual service areas managers to look at areas to improve where there is trends in the nature of the complaints that are coming in. At stage 2, complaints at this level have not changed from last year, so we've had 22 stage 2 complaints and 23% of those have been upheld. Where complaints received at stage 1 or stage 2 relate to equality matters, this is recorded separately under a separate category on the system, and it is monitored through the Equality Officer Group and the Strategic Equality and Diversity Group, as well as forming part of the main quarterly monitoring that goes through to the senior leadership team. Again, the focus on these types of complaint through those 2 separate groups is to identify trends and recognise training and support needed for staff in these areas. In terms of the Ombudsman's complaints for 23-24, there were no complaints upheld last year and only 1 complaint was referred to for full investigation. That investigation found the complaint was not upheld. So this is a positive reflection on the Council's performance in relation to Ombudsman complaints. Members should note that this report is statistical in nature, but within the organisation we are always keen to push a reduction in complaints, as you would expect. I would, however, also like to flag the volume of compliments received, which have been particularly high in leisure services and also in PASC and waste. And it's not surprising that sort of 2 of the biggest areas where we have that front-facing service receive high-level complaints, but also high levels of compliments. It's always easier to express sometimes dissatisfaction with a service than to take the time to make a positive comment. I think that can be reflected in the differing numbers there. The second element of this report is a review of the Council's complaints, compliments and comments policy. So the Ombudsman has recently published its complaint handling code and has indicated an expectation that authorities adopt the principle of that code within their own complaints policies. The Ombudsman has indicated that where an authority has not aligned with their complaint code, this is more likely to lead to potential findings of maladministration when Ombudsmen are looking at investigations. Broadly, it's fair to say that Gedling's policy was already largely in alignment with that code, certainly in terms of the 2-stage approach that the Council has adopted for a period of time. The amendments that are being put forward to Cabinet today is to just align those two complaint methodologies more closely and bring the two together. In summary, the significant changes proposed to our policy are an extension of time to investigate stage 2 complaints from 10 working days to 20 working days. This is largely on the basis that by their very nature, stage 2 complaints are wider than the stage 1 complaint. They take a greater deal of investigation and therefore they are likely to take longer. That is not to say that we will always leave a longer period of time for stage 2 complaints. If they are straightforward and can be answered more quickly, then of course that's what will be done. But it's just to give that leeway for a more thorough investigation at that stage of the process. In addition, some other changes are around a clarification on what is a service request and what is actually a complaint, where complaints may be excluded under this policy, and particularly in relation to the length of time since the incident complained of has occurred, because currently there wasn't really a cap on that, so it's just to make sure that we can't go on, if incidents are a long time ago, it's often difficult to look at those due to the information and the time that's passed. There's also some expansion on how complaints will be handled, and reference to complaints handling training, which we recognise is something going forward that we really need to deliver to our officers across the organisation to ensure consistency in the way in which we are handling complaints. So really the policy is an expansion on what was already there. It is not a complete rewrite, but it is to align with the Ombudsman's Code of Complaints. Moving forward, as we go through a transformation process across the council, and we're really focusing on that customer experience and engagement with our customers, the way in which we manage complaints, access to complaints and how they're logged with us is something that will form part of that review. So going forward, this may be presented in a slightly different way, because we recognise that, complaints and indeed compliments is part of that customer experience, part of that engagement and feedback, and we need to be making sure that we're capturing that in an effective way. Unless you have any further questions, I would urge you to adopt the recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. Any comments, anyone? Either or? I've got 3 in a row, so start with Viv. Start with Viv and then go that way.
Yeah, just to say thank you very much for the report and obviously all the hard work. I mean, it's really important that we get the voice of residents and that we respond to that. I was a little bit disappointed to see that we've got parks as an increased level of dissatisfaction. As you know, we're very proud of our parks in Gedling. We've got some amazing open spaces. We've got some amazing children's play areas, and we're doing some great work in terms of our wildlife, in terms of our bee population, etc. So it is disappointing, and it's certainly something as portfolio holder responsible for parks that I will be taking up with officers really to try and examine a bit more as to what the dissatisfaction is really around whether it is litter bins, antisocial behaviour, or whether it's something more fundamental, because we've got a big focus on parks, and like I say, we've as a borough, we're absolutely so fortunate to have so many open spaces that our children and young people can play on. So I will be taking this up further, so thank you.
Thank you. Just to say, well done to the Community Relations Department and Customer Services, who have received together 48 compliments. It's very easy for people to complain about things, but it's rare actually that people come forward and compliment. And I know that they do a lot of good work. And just to reassure the public, obviously, as portfolio holders, if there are any complaints that are made within our responsibilities, that we do obviously take that really seriously. And as Fran has mentioned, the officer group do scrutinise anything regarding equalities, and also the Strategic Equality and Diversity group do look into any issues relating to that, and that is a cross-party group. So together, if we do identify anything, we will work to make sure that it's corrected. Thank you.
Marge.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite pleased that waste complaints are beginning to come down. I'm very optimistic that with the new systems coming in, but it will not be until probably mid-next financial year that we're fully operational with them, that we'll be able to reduce those complaints quite considerably. But I would like to say about parks as well, that I believe the complaints are mainly about the cutting services, keeping things tidy, which is more my area of work, than the actual use of the parks, which is really, really appreciated. And the staff have been really pushed. They've been pushed in all directions with floods and various other things that they have to cope with in addition to their everyday work. So keeping to schedules has been really difficult, but I hope in the future we'll be better able to do that. Thank you.
It's probably the no mow May that went. But, no May went astray, didn't it, on that one? Yeah, and save the bees and everything else. But yeah, there was something in there you mentioned about the extending time for complaints to deal with. It was from 10 days to stage 2. Yeah, I'm pleased to see that. It just reminded me of there was a police officer on the television today saying they just haven't got time to deal in 48. And I remember this, 36 hours was it, and then they could get an extension. It's very difficult to ask to gather everything, so I'm glad to see that going. But really, thanks to everybody that's been involved. It's a good report. And sorry, who wanted? Henry, sorry. See you there.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the leisure team in terms of all the hard work they do. That's really paying off. Shown through the compliments that are coming through. They do the work they do is phenomenal on the ground, and this shows in the amount of compliments that the team are getting. I'd also like to just say that obviously the council's leisure services team have a compliments book in at reception, which allows customers to provide feedback, and customers can actually read what's been put in there as well. So I think that's really good practice as well. So thank you to everything that's been done there. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Linda? No? No? Nobody else? Okay, we'll move to the vote, which is on page 15. There's 2 items there, and that's note and details annual review and approves the amendments to council's complaints. I move it. Second it. Agreed. We're all agreed. Thank you. And we're moving straight on to item 6. This is the Gedling Design Code Supplementary Planning Document, SPD, and Joe's going to get us through it. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, the purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval to adopt and to publish the Gedling Design Code Supplementary Planning Document. So Gedling has been awarded grants totalling £200,000 by DLUC, now MHCLG, to participate in the Design Code Pathfinder programme and to pilot the preparation of borough-wide design codes. The initial bid was awarded back in March 2022 and has subsequently been extended so the design code can be further refined. The design code applies to the whole borough and sets out the council's ambitions to improve the quality of design in the borough. The intention from the start was for the code to be presented in an extremely user-friendly way, and it therefore comprises a framework of 3 standalone documents targeted on 3 different site sizes. So 1 for major sites of 10 or more dwellings, 1 for small sites of up to 9 dwellings, and 1 for householder extensions and alterations to dwellings. So those 3 documents are attached as appendices 1 to 3 to the report. And the framework is also supported by 3 background papers. The first is the core document, that's background paper A, that explains the design process and vision for the borough. The observation library is background paper 2, and that includes valuable background information so that applicants can better understand sites and their contexts. And the baseline assessment report attached as background paper 3 is some of the very early work undertaken on the design code framework that's been published for the sake of completeness. Once it's adopted as a supplementary planning document, the design code framework will be a material consideration in the determination of planning applications, and the design code will also be incorporated into a future review of the council's Part 2 local plan. However, in addition, the design code framework is going to be really helpful in raising the profile of the principles of good design in the borough, so they're more likely to be taken into account prior to planning applications being submitted, and will also be a useful reference document for negotiations on design during the planning application process. The design code is structured around 3 key themes, which are about creating a character for Gedling to make sure that new design reflects its local context, around greener Gedling, and that's both in terms of providing green infrastructure and also the low carbon agenda. And then thirdly, around connected and healthy Gedlings to make sure new development is well connected to the surrounding area. These 3 themes are delivered through a series of design principles, and for each of those, applicants will be expected to observe the area around the planning application site and to make sure they comply with mandatory requirements that must be met, as well as consider implementing desirable requirements that enhance the design proposal. So applicants will need to submit a checklist to show how they've met each principle as part of submitting their planning application. So the preparation of the design code framework has been prepared in close collaboration with DLUC, now MHCLG, and has also comprised a formal consultation exercise which took place between July and August this year. We received comments from about 21 respondents, and those comments are summarised in the report of responses, which is attached as Appendix 4 to the report. And those comments were received from a wide range of bodies and covered a range of issues. We've carefully looked through the comments received, and we've made a number of changes to the final design code framework to reflect those changes. In essence, they have resulted in improved clarity to the presentation of some of the design principles, to the images used within the document. So really some quite minor changes, and to make sure that the final document is more user-friendly and easier to implement. So in summary, members are now asked to approve the final design code framework as a supplementary planning document so that it can be used as a material consideration in future decision making. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. And once again, thank you from everybody on the Cabinet across the Council, because it's quite detailed, that, and it's quite easy. You know, I've not read it all, but it's quite easy to follow. How are we going to put this out to other people? I'm thinking of the environmental group. We're always being lobbied by the environmental group, quite rightly so. But how is this going on the website, Rob, or a slimmed down version of it so people can see the basis actions it's going to go?
Yes, all the documents are going to be on the website, both on the planning policy pages, but also embedded into the development management pages, so that as applicants are looking to understand how to submit a planning application, this will be drawn to their attention. So they will be directed to the document that's applicable to their planning application. So someone submitting quite a minor application will be able to view quite a streamlined document that only contains a small number of requirements, and the more complicated document will only apply to those larger development proposals.
But I can see it being a big help, because if the government's going to smack us with God knows how many houses got to go on top of the other government's housing allocation, then people need to read that, and there's plenty of it to read. But I don't know whether we can actually, if you can form some sort of press release that can go out, Jenny, that can just advise people that this has happened. There is, you know, there's a mini Bible there of it, and to take note. Okay. Jenny?
Thank you. I'm going to try not to cough. I'm afraid I've got a cough. I can't see design without thinking of our former Chair of Planning, John Truscott, who's extremely keen on good design and good planning, and I think he'd be absolutely delighted with this document. And just to say a huge thank you to staff. This is 2.5 years of a huge amount of work, and I think the fact that we got funding, I say we in the royal sense, the fact that we got funding under the Pathfinder, I think is indicative of the esteem that this planning development department is held, because I don't think we'd have got that funding without them being held in high regard. So I think that's an absolute credit to them and us indeed. It's going to be a huge benefit to people. It's really pleasing to see a code which applies to extensions and alterations to homes, because clearly often a bone of contention with neighbours, sometimes out of kilter with the character of the area, which we hold very dear in Gedling. There are places that we want to see enhanced, and bad design is often detrimental to that. So it's a fabulous piece of work, it's a huge piece of work. I think you're right, John, I think we should celebrate it and have a piece on it. And also helps to make people aware of what steps they need to take. But having been through, the documents, it's very clear with the examples of the pictures. I see Margie's got it up there. But a great piece of work. And although Mr. Gove's beautiful homes have gone, they haven't gone here.
Thank you. I've got Viv and then I've got Linda and then David.
Yeah, I mean, just to say, a tremendous piece of work here, a great document, and I just love the three key themes: characterful Gedling, greener Gedling, and connected and healthy Gedling. I think, it's great strapline, and let's not see some of the horrors that we've seen in the past in terms of some of the planning and extensions and buildings, but, characterful, I think it would be, to come through our borough and be absolutely proud. Like when I drive around the country, I see some fabulous housing developments, and it'd be great that, that's our aspiration now. So, yeah, well done, and absolutely fully support it.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to ditto exactly what my colleagues have said here. I found the document really easy to look at. I'm on a small iPad as well, which is absolutely great. A huge amount of work, and as a planning committee member, very, very useful for us as members as well, and thank you for all your help in us understanding what you've done. So, absolutely fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. And can I echo the compliments, was it, since it's the theme of the day, of the report. It's really, really good document, really easy to read, and I think it's a comprehensive discussion of various issues, and it's informative. I've learned what Tofts and Crofts are. A couple of questions. Following on your question, Leader, about what now? What steps are we planning to, in terms of publicising it, in terms of rolling it out, in terms of training? I was thinking, presumably staff will be trained in it. Will members be trained in it? And will training be offered to developers? That's one. And the second question, in the consultation, some of the big developers are raising concerns about, they identify tension between their standard method of having standard buildings that they bring wherever from around the country to the design code. How are we going to resolve that tension? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, just on the first point regarding training, we've been working closely with various sectors as part of preparing the design code. So the document has been taken to our active developers forum at various stages along the process to bring them along the journey with us. Then as we've been nearing the end of the process, we've been working or promoting the design code with the other end of the spectrum, if you like, the local agents who submit a lot of the smaller applications in the borough. And we've held a workshop and have 2 other drop-in sessions coming up where planning officers can work with the local agents so they can understand how the design code will apply to their applications going forward. So in a sense, that's how we're training there. In terms of officers, etc., we have been working closely with colleagues in development management as part of the piloting of the design code to make sure that has the benefit of bringing planning officers into the discussions around making sure the document works well practically and is fit for purpose, but also that sort of two-way sort of training exercise as well. So it certainly won't be the first time this has been sort of sprung on the users of the document. In terms of some of the comments raised through the consultation exercise and tensions, I mentioned the checklist that applicants will be required to complete as part of the submitting of their planning applications. So the requirement is for applicants to demonstrate how they have met the mandatory requirements, in particular set out in the design code. But there's an opportunity to demonstrate where that isn't applicable or to justify why that may not be appropriate in certain circumstances. So it will depend on the reason why a developer might want to deviate away from something in the code. If it's they would rather not, then well, we've got the code there to say this is what we're looking for moving forward. But if there are particular site-specific circumstances why a code principle cannot be met, then that's something that we can discuss with the applicant going forward.
Thanks, Joe. Is any of this going out to the parishes? So it'll be very important, you know, because the only land that's left is probably in the parishes.
Yes, we've certainly engaged with the parish councils as part of the consultation process. We have done a presentation on the design codes to parish clerks, but also they've had an opportunity to engage as part of the consultation process. And similarly, as the design code is adopted, we then notify those who have expressed an interest in the design code.
Thanks. And Mike, could we put, is it on for the
Yeah.
parish council meeting?